The hum was the first thing that broke through the fog. A low electric thrum from the fluorescent lights overhead, a sound that vibrated deep in Rachel Bennett's bones. It had become the soundtrack to her nightmare. For 48 hours she had existed in this purgatory of hard plastic chairs and the sterile smell of disinfectant, waiting. The waiting was a physical entity, a heavy cloak smothering her, making it impossible to draw a full breath. Her gaze was fixed on the scuffed linoleum tiles, a universe of gray swirls that seemed to mock the vibrant, colorful world she had lost. In her trembling hands, she clutched a photograph of her daughter, Haley. It was slightly worn at the edges, the paper softened by the desperate grip of her fingers. The picture taken on Thursday morning was a cruel relic from another lifetime. In it, Haley, all of 2.5 years old, was a supernova of joy. Her smile was so wide it crinkled her dark eyes, and she was wearing her favorite red Elmo t-shirt, the same shirt she had on when the world split open. The wall clock read 4:37 p.m. 48 hours and 32 minutes since she had returned to the playground, the fresh diaper bag a useless talisman in her hand, to find the swing empty. The friendly woman, Melissa, was gone. And Haley was gone. She had just finished her second exhaustive interview with Detective Hart, a man whose stone-faced professionalism was betrayed by the deep-set kindness in his eyes. For 2 hours, he had made her dissect every excruciating second of that afternoon at Everpine Park. She had replayed the scene in her mind 1,000 times, each replay a new turn of the knife in her gut. It had been so ordinary. A perfect spring afternoon, a reward for a long week. Haley, giddy with excitement, pulling her toward the swings. Then the sudden messy accident in her diaper, the familiar toddler tantrum when Rachel suggested a trip to the car. "No, go swing more," Haley had protested, her tiny face a mask of stubborn determination. And then, the voice. A warm, reassuring voice from the park bench nearby. "I can watch her for a minute if you need to grab something," the woman had offered. She had a kind, open face and introduced herself as Melissa, a kindergarten teacher. Her own son was clambering on the monkey bars a short distance away. A teacher, safe, trustworthy. Rachel had hesitated for a heartbeat. "Are you sure you don't mind?" "Not at all," Melissa had replied, her smile disarming. "We teachers are used to diaper emergencies. Take your time." 5 minutes, that's all it had been. 5 minutes to walk to the car, fumble for the keys, grab the bag, and walk back. 5 minutes for her world to be hollowed out, leaving behind a silent, screaming void. The frantic search, calling Haley's name until her throat was raw. The mounting panic as she pushed open the heavy door to the empty park restroom, the 911 call, her voice shattering into incomprehensible sobs. And then, David, her ex-husband. The police had called him immediately, a standard procedure that had unleashed a storm of his familiar searing rage. "You let a stranger watch our daughter?" he had shouted over the phone, his voice a weapon. "What the hell is wrong with you, Rachel? Can't you just be a good mother for once?" The accusation had landed like a physical blow, because it echoed the ugliest voice in her own head. The police had searched his house, of course. He had a solid alibi, a business meeting across town. But the poison of his words had lingered, a secondary infection to the agony of Haley's absence. The sound of the station's front door creaking open pulled Rachel from her dark reverie. David Langford strode in, his normally impeccable appearance disheveled. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, but his eyes burned with the same righteous fury she had heard over the phone. When his gaze landed on her, it was like being doused in gasoline. "This is your fault," he spat, foregoing any greeting. His voice was low, a venomous hiss meant only for her. The grief that had been strangling her for 2 days was suddenly pierced by a white-hot spear of anger. "Don't you dare, David, not now. I'm stating facts. You left our child with a complete stranger." "I was gone for 5 minutes," she shot back, her voice rising. "To get a diaper bag because of that damn fruit pouch you sent over. She was fine until she ate that." His face flushed a deep mottled red. "That's ridiculous. I bought her favorite snack. It was probably that cheap daycare food you insist on feeding her." He took a step closer, his hands balling into fists. "That's enough." Detective Hart's voice sliced through the tension. He had emerged from his office, his presence an immediate and imposing barrier. "Both of you, calm down. This isn't helping us find Haley." David took a deep, shuddering breath, visibly reining himself in. "Fine. What's the latest?" he demanded, checking his expensive watch. "I have a meeting in an hour I can't miss." Rachel stared at him, incredulous. Their daughter was missing, and he was worried about a meeting. It was so quintessentially David that the absurdity of it almost made her laugh. Before Hart could respond, the desk phone rang. The officer who answered listened intently, his expression shifting from neutral to alarmed. He put the caller on hold and hurried over to Hart, speaking in a hushed, urgent tone. Rachel's heart began to hammer against her ribs. Something had been found. Hart's face grew grim. He turned to them. "We've just received a call from a janitor at Everpine Park," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "He found something in the women's restroom." Did they find—" Rachel couldn't form the words. "No, not Haley," he clarified quickly, seeing the terror in her eyes. "But he found a child-sized shirt and a soiled diaper inside a locked stall. The shirt matches the description of what Haley was wearing. A red Elmo shirt." The floor seemed to drop away from beneath her. "I need to go there," she said, her voice a raw whisper. "I need to see it." "I can't go," David announced abruptly. "I told you I have that meeting." He pointed a finger at Hart. "You call me the second you know anything more." Without another glance at Rachel, he turned and strode out of the station, leaving a vacuum of stunned silence in his wake. How could he walk away? The question was a silent scream in her mind, but there was no time for it. Detective Hart was already guiding her toward the door. "Are you ready to go?" Rachel squared her shoulders. The grief was still there, a monstrous weight, but now it had a new companion, a cold, sharp-edged resolve. "Yes," she said. "Let's go find my daughter." The drive back to Everpine Park was a surreal journey into a desecrated memory. The playground, once a place of laughter, was now cordoned off with fluttering yellow tape, a silent, grim testament to her failure. A forensics van and 2 cruisers were parked near the public restrooms. A tall, thin janitor, Frankie Morales, stood talking to an officer, his face a mask of troubled concern. A forensics technician, a petite woman named Officer Chen, approached them carrying 2 clear evidence bags. In one was Haley's red t-shirt, in the other the soiled diaper. Seeing them, so small and mundane and yet so catastrophic, made Rachel's chest clench. "There's no apparent blood," Officer Chen said gently, and Rachel released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The janitor explained how he'd found the items in a stall that had been locked all day. Forensics had determined Haley hadn't been physically in the stall. There were no child-sized prints. Someone had placed the items there deliberately. A game. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't a random act. Someone had taken her daughter and was now playing a twisted, calculated game. The cold resolve in her veins hardened into ice. "There's one more thing, Ms. Bennett," Hart said as they walked back to his car. "We need Haley's medical records and birth certificate." "They're at David's house," she said, the words tasting like poison. He was supposed to have returned them months ago. Of course he hadn't. We can send an officer to pick them up. No, Rachel said, the decision forming before she was even aware of it. I can get them. His place isn't far. Given the tension between you, Hart began, his brow furrowed with concern. I'll be fast, careful. I won't even see him. She needed to do something, anything, other than sit and wait. Retrieving those documents felt like a mission, a small, tangible act in a world that had become unmoored. At the station, they reviewed the park's grainy surveillance footage. There she was. Melissa hurrying toward a sedan, a small girl in a red shirt in her arms, a boy trailing behind. The image was a spear through Rachel's heart. The tech specialist managed to pull a partial license plate before the car disappeared from view. While we're waiting for the DMV results, Hart said, it might be a good time for you to get those documents. Rachel nodded, her mind already on the short drive to David's house. She tried his number again. Voicemail. She left a message, her voice clipped and professional. Then she drove. The house David had bought after their divorce was like him, modern, cold, and meticulously ordered. As she pulled into the driveway, her stomach clenched. His silver Audi was there. He wasn't at his meeting. She saw grocery bags in the back seat and next to them his expensive leather suitcase and a blue cooler. A prickle of unease crawled up her spine. Why was he packed for a trip? She called him. This time he answered, his voice sharp. What do you want, Rachel? She explained about the documents, her voice carefully neutral. After a tense pause, he told her where to find the spare key. Just grab the documents and go, he ordered, then hung up. The house was silent, sterile. It felt less like a home and more like a showroom. She found the manila envelope exactly where she remembered it, in the bottom drawer of the hallway cabinet. She had what she came for. She should have left. Her promise to Detective Hart echoed in her mind. But the packed car, the cooler, it was wrong. All of it was wrong. A mother's instinct, a primal, undeniable force pulled her deeper into the house. The kitchen was spotless, the living room untouched. The master bedroom door was ajar. She pushed it open. The room was perfect, the bed made with military precision. But on the dresser, something was out of place. A gift wrapped in blue paper with cars and ships. Boys' wrapping paper. Beside it, a delicate tortoise-shell hair clip. A woman's hair clip. Rachel froze. A cold dread, heavier and more profound than anything she had felt yet, settled in her stomach. David had never mentioned a girlfriend. Not to her, not to the police. Who was this woman? And who was the gift for? Her hands shaking, she took out her phone and snapped photos. She found a Ziploc bag in the kitchen and, using a dish towel, carefully placed the hair clip inside. Evidence. The word screamed in her mind. She was backing out of the driveway when her phone rang. David. Are you still at my house? His voice was tight. Just leaving, she said, trying to sound casual. As she drove away, a taxi pulled up to David's house. Rachel's foot hit the brake. She pulled over, her heart pounding. A woman got out. Even from a distance, Rachel could see she was wearing a leather jacket and a hijab, her face obscured by large sunglasses. The taxi driver helped her with a large box, which she set down in the driveway. Then the woman pulled out a key and let herself into David's house. She had a key. Rachel sat frozen, watching. This wasn't a casual visitor. The woman emerged a few minutes later, carrying a duffel bag and the blue-wrapped gift. She walked to David's Audi and with his key unlocked it. She loaded the bags, then used a box cutter to open the large package. Inside was a brand new car seat. With practiced ease, she installed it in the back. A car seat, a packed suitcase, a gift for a boy, a woman with a key. Melissa, the woman from the park. She had a son, The pieces slammed together in Rachel's mind, forming a picture of such monstrous betrayal that it stole her breath. This woman in her clumsy disguise had to be Melissa, and David. David was in on it. All of it. The anger, the blame, it was all an act. A hideous, calculated performance. As the Audi's headlights came on, Rachel's paralysis broke. She started her own car. She had to follow. All rational thought, all promises to Detective Hart, evaporated. Her daughter was out there, and these people, the man she had once loved and the woman who had worn the mask of kindness, were trying to steal her forever. She kept her distance, her hands gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white. She was on the phone with Hart, her voice a low, urgent whisper, reporting everything. They were heading out of town, toward the rural outskirts. "Wait," she said, a memory surfacing. "I know where we're going. David's friend has a vacation cottage out this way." As she spoke, the Audi turned onto a narrow, tree-lined lane. Evergreen Lane. At the end, a rustic cottage stood alone. Rachel pulled onto a dirt turnout, her heart hammering. The Audi parked. The woman got out. She removed her disguise. It was her. It was Melissa. A boy, Melissa's son, ran out to greet her. And then, a moment later, a small figure toddled out onto the porch. "Oh my God!" Rachel gasped, tears blurring her vision. "Detective Haley's there. I can see her. She's alive." The world narrowed to that small, beloved silhouette. Haley, safe. For now. Then another car, a taxi, pulled up, and David got out. He walked into the cottage without knocking. "They're going to try and take her away," Rachel whispered, the full scope of their plan crashing down on her. The car seat, the bags, the ferry to Canada. Minutes later, they emerged. David was carrying Haley, who was drowsy, in his arms. They were all getting into the car. "Ms. Bennett, stay calm," Hart ordered over the phone. "Our units are almost there." But she couldn't. She couldn't risk them slipping away. "I'm sorry, Detective," she said, her voice hard with resolve. "I can't let them get away." She started her engine and followed, the line to Hart open, a lifeline of sound in the terrifying darkness. She followed them to the Port Angeles ferry terminal, her world reduced to the red taillights of David's car. They parked. They got out. They walked toward the terminal entrance, and then the world exploded in flashing blue and red lights. Police cruisers converged, silent and swift, officers, weapons drawn, surrounded them. "Police! Freeze!" Rachel was out of her car before she even realized she was moving, running toward the chaos. An officer gently separated a crying Haley from David. "Haley!" Rachel cried out, her voice breaking. The little girl's head snapped up. "Mama!" Rachel dropped to her knees on the cold asphalt, and Haley ran into her arms. The solid, warm weight of her daughter, the smell of her hair, the feel of her small arms wrapped tightly around her neck. It was the most real thing in the universe. She was home. She was safe. "You don't deserve her," David snarled as officers led him past, his face a mask of defeated rage. "She deserves a real family." Rachel ignored him, her entire being focused on the child in her arms. Later at the station, the full sordid story would be laid bare. The online grooming, the tampered fruit pouch, the forged documents for a new life in Belize. It was a conspiracy born of narcissistic rage and desperate loneliness. But as she sat in the harsh light of the interview room, Haley sleeping soundly in her lap, she saw Melissa's son Tyler sitting alone in the break room, his small world shattered. His mother had promised him a sister, and now he had lost everything. And in that moment, in the aftermath of her own personal inferno, Rachel felt something shift. The rage was still there, a hot coal deep inside her. But another feeling rose to meet it, a profound, aching compassion for the other innocent child caught in this web. The decision came to her then, clear and undeniable. She found Melissa in another interview room, a broken woman stripped of her disguises. "I'd like to take Tyler in," Rachel said, her voice steady. "Temporarily, until a more permanent arrangement can be made." Melissa stared at her, shock and shame warring on her face. "After what I did to you." "Your mistake shouldn't ruin his life," Rachel said. "He's innocent." Driving home hours later with 2 sleeping children in the back of her car, Rachel felt the crushing weight of the last 3 days. Her daughter was safe. A little boy who had lost everything had a soft place to land. And she, a mother who had walked through fire, had emerged not just with her own child, but with the strength to shelter another. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in 48 hours, it was no longer dark.